I've reached out to every one of my children. I've reached out to every one of my children, and multiple times. And if they don't have a relationship with me, it's because they're not reciprocating.
The clip opens on Mykelti sitting across from Cody, tension sitting between them like a third person. Her voice is steady, but you can hear the edge under it. "Dad, you can't fix anything if you keep lying about what happened. You know that, right?" Cody leans back, blinking hard, like he didn't expect her to start there. He looks around the room as if someone else is supposed to answer for him. When no one does, he clears his throat. "I am not lying. I am protecting the truth." Mykelti just shakes her head. Protecting the truth. "Dad, you are ruining any chance of repairing your relationships. You cannot rewrite the story just because it makes you look better." The air goes heavy. Cody looks stunned. Mykelti looks exhausted. And you already know this is not going to be a calm conversation. Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we are digging into something that has been building for a long time. Mykelti has spoken publicly before, but this time she puts everything on the table. She confronts Cody directly about the stories he has been pushing, and the way those stories have hurt the people he claims to love. And according to her, the biggest roadblock between Cody and any kind of healing is the one thing he refuses to admit: his lies. Now, here is where it gets interesting, because this is not just another disagreement inside the Brown family. This is a daughter who has watched her father lose wife after wife, child after child, connection after connection. And instead of taking a breath and reflecting on where he went wrong, he keeps shifting the blame. He redirects, he reframes, he creates new versions of events that don't line up with what his kids experienced. So when Mykelti finally sits down and says, "You are ruining your own path to repair," she is not exaggerating. She is calling out a pattern that has been circling this family for years, and here is the part that matters. She doesn't say it with anger. She doesn't go for shock value. She speaks like someone who has reached the end of patience. Someone who has watched the consequences build and build until there is nowhere else for them to go. But before we get into the deeper confrontation, we need to talk about the background that led to this moment. Because for Mykelti, this wasn't a single spark. It was growing frustration. It came from watching her siblings lose faith in their dad. It came from watching him shift the blame onto the moms, the kids, the in-laws. And it came from hearing him retell the story of their family in a way that doesn't match reality. So today we are breaking down what she confronted him about, why it matters, and how it exposes the cracks that TLC never highlights on camera. This is the moment Mykelti stopped tiptoeing around the truth. This is the moment she said exactly what the rest of the family has been thinking. This is the moment Cody had no way to spin. So here's the idea behind what pushed Mykelti to finally confront her dad. It wasn't one moment. It wasn't a single argument. It was everything stacking up over time until she couldn't ignore it anymore. According to her, Cody has been telling different versions of the same stories depending on who he's talking to. One version for Robin, another version for the cameras, another version for the wives he's estranged from, and yet another version for the kids. Every version conveniently makes him the victim or the misunderstood hero, and Mykelti has reached a point where she's done pretending those stories match what actually happened. She said it clearly, "Dad, you can't repair relationships if you're not honest about why they broke." He wants to look like a father who tried his best but was dragged down by wives who didn't appreciate him and kids who turned against him. But that's not how the kids see it. It's not how Christine saw it. It's not how Janelle saw it. And it's definitely not how Mykelti sees it. Her confrontation isn't about disrespecting her dad. It's about calling out the gap between the stories he tells and the truth the family lived through. And honestly, it makes sense. Because why would Cody ever blame himself? Why would he admit he showed favoritism? Why would he admit he emotionally checked out on some of his kids? Why would he admit he let Robin's needs come before everyone else? If he admitted all that, he'd also have to admit he caused the breakdown. And that is the one thing he refuses to look at. So Mykelti stepped in. She didn't talk around it, she didn't soften it. She said the quiet part out loud. She told him, "You're not losing people because of their choices. You're losing them because of your choices." And that is the moment everything shifted. Because this isn't just a daughter venting. This is someone who watched the truth get bent for years, and finally decided enough is enough. Before we dive further into the confrontation, let's recap exactly what Mykelti is referring to when she says Cody's lies are blocking repair. Over the years, Cody has spun the family story in ways that often put him in the best light, whether it was about polygamy, decisions regarding the kids, or who was at fault in disputes. There's a pattern. Cody rarely acknowledges his own role. For instance, he's often framed the dissolution of plural relationships as the fault of the wives, never fully admitting he drifted emotionally or prioritized one over the others. He's told stories about favoritism in ways that make it seem accidental or necessary, rather than a conscious choice. When conflicts arise with the kids, he frequently redirects blame to circumstances, choices, or even external influences like the church, instead of facing his own accountability. All of this adds up. The more he repeats these narratives, the higher the wall he's building between himself and his children. Mykelti has been watching this wall grow her whole life. And it's not just about personal hurt, it's about the ripple effect. When Cody rewrites history, it changes the family's perception, the public's perception, and ultimately, his ability to truly connect and heal relationships. So when she confronts him now, it's not a spur of the moment decision. She's been preparing for this mentally for a long time. She's done waiting for him to tell the truth. She's done letting his version dominate the narrative. And the irony, by lying to protect his image, Cody is simultaneously preventing himself from the one thing he claims to want: repair and reconciliation with his family. Mykelti calls it out bluntly. "You're not protecting anyone, Dad. You're just protecting your version of yourself." This is the setup for the heart of their conversation. The part where she doesn't just accuse him, she exposes the consequences of his behavior. Now we get to the moment where the conversation turns intense. Mykelti doesn't hesitate. She goes straight for the heart of the issue. "Dad," she says, leaning forward, "every time you tell a story differently, you make it impossible for us to trust you. You say you want repair, but you're doing everything to make it fail." Cody shifts uncomfortably, glancing away, mumbling something about protecting the truth, but Mykelti interrupts. "No, that's not true. That's selective storytelling. You change details to make yourself look like the victim. That's not healing. That's manipulation." This is the moment where the theory about Cody's intentions becomes crystal clear. Mykelti isn't just confronting him about past mistakes. She's confronting him about a pattern, a repeated behavior that undermines any chance of reconciliation. And she isn't sugarcoating it. The words cut deep, but she delivers them calmly, almost methodically. She knows the truth. She's lived it, and she wants him to see it clearly. "You've had multiple chances to make this right," she continues, "but you keep framing the story to protect yourself instead of the family. That is why things are broken. That is why people walk away." Cody's response is telling. He doesn't immediately argue or defend himself, which is unusual. Usually, he jumps in with explanations or shifts blame. Instead, he hesitates. And in that pause, you can see the weight of what she is saying start to land. This is not just a casual family disagreement. This is a daughter holding her father accountable for a lifetime of patterns, for the walls his lies have built, and for the trust he has eroded. After Mykelti's words hang in the air, the room feels heavy. You can almost hear the weight of years pressing down on them. Cody shifts in his chair again, rubbing the back of his neck, a gesture that has become so familiar to anyone who has watched him on the show. He is trying to process, trying to figure out how to respond without looking weak. But Mykelti isn't giving him that space. This moment exposes more than just a confrontation. It exposes family patterns that have existed for decades. Cody's approach to relationships, his wives, his children, and even the public, has long been about control. When things don't go according to his narrative, he adjusts the story rather than adjusting his behavior. This is what Mykelti has grown up watching, what she has internalized, and what she refuses to perpetuate in her own life. She presses on, her voice steady, but filled with years of frustration. "Every time you rewrite the past, you are not protecting anyone. You are just delaying the truth. You are making it harder for us to reconnect because we can't trust the version of events you are telling. You are building walls that only you can see, but the rest of us feel them every day. And it is here that you begin to understand why this confrontation matters so much. It is not simply about calling Cody out. It is about stopping the cycle." Mykelti is pointing out that the lies, the selective storytelling, and the manipulation have tangible consequences: fractured relationships, resentment, and emotional distance. that may never fully heal if the pattern continues. Cody finally speaks, though his words are guarded. I don't want to hurt anyone, I'm trying to explain. But Mykelti cuts through the defensive tone gently. But firmly trying to explain isn't the same as being honest. You think protecting the story is helping us, but it's not. It's hurting everyone. The truth may be uncomfortable, but it's the only way forward. In this exchange, you see the essence of what makes these Brown family confrontations so compelling. The mixture of raw emotion, historical context, and psychological insight. Mykelti isn't just accusing her father, she's dissecting the consequences of his actions, and asking the hard question that no one else has dared to: will Cody ever take responsibility for his part in the family breakdown? For viewers, this is both shocking and fascinating. We see a daughter finally naming the patterns that have controlled her family's lives, and we witness the tension between accountability and defensiveness play out in real time. This is where the conversation moves beyond Cody and Mykelti, and into the bigger picture, the impact of his lies on the rest of the family. Mykelti doesn't just speak for herself, she speaks for her siblings, for the mothers, and for the kids who have grown up navigating this web of narratives. Dad, it's not just me, she says. Every time you twist the story, it changes how the others see themselves, how they see each other, and even how they see you. You're rewriting history for everyone but yourself. The truth is heavy. Cody's selective storytelling doesn't exist in a vacuum. His version of events shapes the family's memory, often at the expense of those who lived through it. Mykelti brings this up with precision, pointing out that it's not about revenge or anger, it's about reality and accountability. You've built walls with your words, she continues, walls that stop repair, walls that stop trust. And every time you tell a new version of the story, the wall grows taller. This moment is crucial because it frames Cody's lies as a direct obstacle to repair, rather than a harmless distortion. She is essentially saying, your words have consequences. And the longer you let the lies continue, the more relationships break, the more trust disappears. And it's not just theoretical. Mykelti recalls moments from the past where misrepresentations caused confusion, hurt, and tension among siblings. She reminds Cody of incidents that seemed minor at the time but built layers of resentment that remain today. She points out that the public perception, what viewers see on television, is just the tip of the iceberg. Behind the cameras, the lies have a real emotional cost. She presses the point further: the family can't begin to heal unless he acknowledges these consequences. You can't just say, I'm sorry, and expect everything to be fixed, she warns. Fixing it means telling the truth fully and honestly about what happened and how it affected everyone. The tension in the room is palpable. Cody is silent for a moment, the kind of silence that says more than words ever could. He knows the weight of her words, even if he isn't ready to admit it out loud. And this is precisely why Mykelti keeps pressing. Not because she wants to shame him, but because she knows this is the only way forward. As the conversation deepens, Mykelti turns the focus toward the recurring patterns in Cody's behavior. She doesn't just address one-off incidents or single arguments, she lays out the systematic way his lies have created dysfunction across the family. Dad, she says, this isn't about one mistake. It's about every time you've rewritten the story to make yourself look right. Every time you've shifted blame, every time you've avoided your own accountability. She explains that these patterns are predictable. She's observed them for years. When a child or wife voices a concern, Cody reframes it as criticism against him. When a relationship falters, he attributes the fault to circumstances or others, rarely to himself. When confronted with inconsistencies, he creates a new narrative that casts him as the misunderstood party. Mykelti doesn't just state these patterns, she illustrates them with examples. She recalls moments when Cody told one story to Robin, another to the other wives, and a completely different story to the children. These conflicting narratives created confusion and tension, and in some cases, outright alienation. The problem, Mykelti continues, is that these patterns are invisible until someone points them out. But once you see them, you realize why trust is impossible. You realize why relationships fracture. You realize why the repair you talk about never actually happens. And this is where the audience begins to see why Mykelti's confrontation is so significant. She's not simply airing grievances, she's mapping out the behaviors that have led to long-standing damage. She's demonstrating that repairing relationships requires more than apologies. It requires recognition and real change. She pauses, letting it sink in. Dad, I'm telling you this because I want you to succeed in fixing what's broken, but you have to see it for what it is. Otherwise, you're just repeating the same mistakes over and over. Her tone is firm but not hostile. This isn't about winning an argument. It's about forcing the truth into the room where it's been absent for far too long. The room feels heavier now. There is no dodging the reality she's presenting. Cody's pattern of avoidance and selective storytelling has been exposed, and the weight of it hangs in the air like a warning. Things cannot move forward until this cycle ends. After laying out the patterns, Mykelti shifts the focus to the real-world consequences of Cody's lies. This is where the confrontation gets personal, because it's not just about the stories themselves. It's about how those stories have fractured relationships and caused lasting damage. She starts gently but firmly. Every time you bend the truth, it's not just a story. It's a relationship broken, a trust lost, a sibling pitted against another. You can't see the ripple, but it's there, and it's real. Cody looks down, not saying much. He's silent, perhaps realizing for the first time the full impact of his actions. Mykelti doesn't let the silence stop her. She continues, listing specific consequences: estranged children who are hesitant to reach out, wives who feel their voices and experiences are erased, public perception that misunderstands the family dynamic entirely, emotional tolls on the younger siblings who grew up absorbing these inconsistencies. She emphasizes that it's not about blame, it's about accountability. You talk about repairing the damage, but if you continue to tell different stories to different people, there's no repair. You're just putting patches on a foundation that's still unstable. Here's where the theory becomes crystal clear. Mykelti isn't just upset because of past hurts. She's calling out the exact reason why Cody can't move forward. His inability to tell the full, honest truth has made genuine reconciliation impossible. She also points out the subtle ways these lies play out. Sometimes it's small, misremembering dates, misrepresenting intentions, downplaying mistakes. But cumulatively, these small distortions compound into something huge, a family that doesn't fully trust its leader. And Dad, she says, her voice steady but unwavering, you can't fix what's broken if you keep spinning the story your way. Your lies aren't protecting anyone. They're sabotaging every chance of repair you claim to want. The room is tense. Cody's face shows a mixture of discomfort and realization. This is the kind of confrontation that can't be ignored or spun. It's blunt, it's personal, and it cuts to the core of why the family's fractures persist. At this point in the conversation, it's clear why Mykelti has chosen to speak up now, rather than letting years of frustration simmer in private. She explains that staying silent has consequences of its own. Dad, she says, I've stayed quiet for a long time. I let things slide, thinking maybe you'd change, or that things would work themselves out. But they haven't. And every time I stay silent, someone else suffers. Someone else is confused, hurt, or alienated because of your version of events. Her point is important. This isn't just about her own feelings. It's about protecting the family from further damage. Mykelti frames it as a responsibility. She's holding Cody accountable, not for the sake of confrontation, but because the truth matters more than comfort. Every lie, she continues, even the small ones, compounds. It creates distrust. It makes it impossible to repair relationships, and you know it. This is where the audience begins to understand the stakes. Cody's stories haven't just shaped public perception, they've shaped the family's internal reality. Children who grew up hearing one version, mothers who were told another, siblings who saw yet another, all experience a fractured reality. She drives it home by pointing out that this silence also gave him power. By controlling the narrative, Cody controlled emotions, decisions, and even loyalties. But now, by speaking up, Mykelti removes that control. She refuses to let her father's storytelling dictate her perspective or her relationships with her siblings. You can't rewrite history anymore, Dad. You can't spin it in a way that makes it easier for you. It's time to face it for what it is, she says firmly. Her words carry weight because they're not just criticism. They're a challenge, a call for honesty, a demand for accountability, and the subtle irony is that Cody's path to repair depends entirely on how he responds to this moment. For the first time in a long time, The family's narrative doesn't bend to Cody. Mykelti is reclaiming it, and this is exactly why the confrontation matters so much. It's not just about airing grievances, it's about breaking a cycle that has lasted for decades. Now, Mykelti dives into why. Cody's lies have created a roadblock that makes genuine repair nearly impossible. She frames it as a simple truth. You can't rebuild trust on a foundation of falsehoods. Dad, she says, you say you want to make things right, but the moment you lie, or even just omit the full truth, you sabotage yourself. You make it impossible for anyone to believe in what you're saying or trust your intentions. She explains that it's not about the lies themselves, it's about their effects. Small distortions, when repeated over years, create a family that is hesitant to open up, hesitant to engage, and hesitant to forgive. She gives examples from their past, moments where Cody recast disagreements with the wives to make himself look like the reasonable party, moments where he minimized mistakes with the kids, and moments where his selective memory caused rifts that could have been avoided. The damage isn't from what happened, she clarifies. It's from how you told it afterward. And here is the critical part of her confrontation. Mykelti isn't just calling out past behaviors. She's presenting a framework for how Cody could actually begin to repair relationships, but only if he's honest. You have a choice, she says. You can continue telling your version of the story, keep protecting your image, and watch repair slip further away. Or you can finally admit the truth, accept responsibility, and take the first real step toward healing. Her tone is calm but firm. There is no screaming, no dramatic flair. Instead, an unrelenting drive towards the truth. And it is in this moment that the audience can feel the gravity of her words. This is not about winning an argument. This is about creating a path forward where one didn't exist before. Cody shifts uncomfortably, looking away for just a brief moment. He senses the weight of what she is saying, but he says nothing immediately, and that does volumes. He knows she is right, and that, in itself, is what makes this confrontation so potent. At this stage of the confrontation, Mykelti shifts her approach slightly. She's already laid out the patterns, the consequences, and the stakes. Now, she focuses on the moment where honesty meets resistance. Cody's natural instinct to defend, to justify, to redirect. You don't like hearing this, do you? She asks, almost rhetorically. Cody hesitates. His eyes flicker around the room, searching for an escape. But Mykelti presses on. That's the problem. Dad, every time you feel uncomfortable with the truth, you dodge it. You make excuses. You twist it. You reframe it. That's why repair has never been possible. This is a critical moment because it exposes Cody's internal struggle. He wants reconciliation, but only if it can come without admitting wrongdoing. He wants relationships restored, but only if the story still paints him as the hero. And Mykelti is confronting him with the reality that this isn't compatible with genuine repair. She doesn't shy away from this uncomfortable truth. You can't have both, she says firmly. You can't be the hero in your story and expect the family to believe you're capable of change. One comes at the cost of the other. Her words cut to the core of a long-standing issue. Cody's version of events has always served himself first, and while that may have maintained his image in the short term, it's the reason his family is fractured now. She continues, listing subtle but impactful examples of how his defenses have created distance over time. Avoiding uncomfortable conversations until someone else initiates. Framing past decisions as mistakes of others rather than personal accountability. Turning apologies into justifications or half-truths. Every point lands like a brick on the wall he's built around himself. And this is where the confrontation becomes pivotal. Mykelti isn't just highlighting mistakes, she's showing him why they've blocked his own path to repair. For the audience, it's impossible not to notice the tension. You can see that Cody realizes he's cornered, but the magnitude of what she's saying is only beginning to hit him. This is the turning point: truth versus resistance, accountability versus ego, reality versus narrative. As the conversation moves deeper, Mykelti makes it abundantly clear that repair isn't optional. It's necessary if Cody wants to salvage anything. She's no longer just confronting past actions. She's highlighting the urgency of the moment. Dad, she says, her voice calm but unyielding, you can't keep doing this and expect things to get better. Every lie, every half-truth, every twisted story, you're the one blocking repair. You have a choice now. You can continue to protect your image and watch relationships fall apart, or you can face the truth and finally start making amends. This is where the stakes become personal. Mykelti isn't speaking hypothetically. She references real moments, times when Cody's lies caused misunderstandings between siblings, times when wives felt unheard or dismissed, and times when children hesitated to reach out because they couldn't trust the version of events being presented. You have to understand, she continues. This isn't about being right. It's about being honest. You can't fix what's broken if you keep controlling the story. Repair only happens when everyone sees the same truth. And right now, that truth isn't there because of your choices. Here's the critical insight. Cody's path to reconciliation doesn't depend on gestures or apologies or appearances on the show. It depends entirely on whether he can finally embrace honesty. The moment he accepts responsibility and stops bending reality, he creates the only chance of genuine repair. She pauses, letting the words hang. This isn't optional, Dad. You can either step into the truth, or you continue to live in a story that isolates you from the people who should matter most. The tension in the room is almost tangible. Cody knows she's right. The quiet that follows is heavy, not because anyone is angry, but because the truth is undeniable. Every lie he's told, every story he's reshaped, every blame he's shifted. It's all led to this moment, and Mykelti is showing him precisely what he risks if he continues down the same path. Her voice softens slightly, but the message remains firm. This is your chance, Dad. You can finally start repairing the family, but it has to be real, and it has to be honest. In that instant, it's clear. This confrontation isn't just about airing grievances, it's about holding the key to the family's healing in plain sight, and daring Cody to take it. At this point, the confrontation reaches its most pivotal moment. Mykelti's words have cut through layers of deflection and avoidance, leaving Cody with a stark choice. Continue the patterns that have fractured his family, or face the reality he has long avoided. You see, Dad, she says quietly, but with unwavering clarity, repair isn't just a nice idea, it's the only way forward. Every lie, every omission, every story that paints you as the victim instead of the participant in your own decisions, it all needs to end if you want relationships that last. Cody exhales slowly, and for the first time in the conversation, there's a pause that feels heavier than any argument or accusation. He knows she's right, the patterns she highlighted, the consequences she outlined, the stakes she presented. It all converges into a truth. He can't spin away. Mykelti leans in, her tone softening just enough to show the intention behind her words. I'm not saying this to hurt you, Dad. I'm saying this because I care. Because I want to see you succeed where you failed before. Because I want the family to heal. She recounts examples of fractured moments. Children hesitant to reach out. Wives feeling unheard. Siblings walking away from meaningful connections. All outcomes of Cody's inability to face truth head on, and it's not abstract. These are real, tangible effects that have shaped the family's life for years. You have to understand, she continues, every story you twist keeps people at a distance. Every time you protect your image over honesty, you sabotage repair. You can't fix what you don't acknowledge, and right now that's on you. Cody is silent, the weight of her words visible. He knows that she is right, that the walls he built with lies are tall, and that, the longer he has maintained these walls, the more difficult repair becomes. It is not about public perception or media narratives. It is about the people that matter most, your children, your wives, your family. The room falls silent, though the weightiness of the conversation is palpable. Mykelti made it clear, the path to repair is visible, but only if Cody chooses honesty over image, accountability over deflection, and truth over comfort. This is the moment when the confrontation hits its emotional peak. It is time for Cody to stop running from the consequences. He can no longer rewrite the story to suit his narrative. Mykelti laid it all out. Patterns, consequences, stakes, and solutions. The choice is his, and the family waits. As this confrontation is brought to a close, the room is thick with silence. Mykelti has said everything she needed to say, and Cody is left with the undeniable truth. His lies have shaped the family's reality, and the path to repair has always been blocked by his own choices. Mykelti softens her tone, not out of weakness, but out of clarity. "Dad," she says, "this isn't about blaming you endlessly. It is about showing you that if you want to repair, you have to face yourself honestly. No more stories, no more deflections, no more protecting your image at the expense of the family." She reminds him that repair is not one conversation or a quick apology. It is a commitment to consistency, to honesty, and to rebuilding trust brick by brick. And though the road ahead will be long and hard, she makes a point to say that it is still possible if he chooses to step fully into accountability. For the audience, this is the pivotal moment. It evidences the power of confronting truth with courage, patience, and precision. She isn't attacking her father out of anger. She is shedding light on the path that has been long masked with lies and subjective storytelling. She concludes with a firm yet hopeful statement. "You can't change the past, Dad, but you can shape the future. The family you want, the relationships you say you value, they depend on what you do next. Don't let the lies win. Step into honesty and you can finally begin to repair what is broken." Cody just sits quietly, the weight of her words sinking in. No immediate response comes, but the message is clear. The door toward reconciliation is open, but only if he walks through it honestly. For Mykelti, this confrontation will not only be about Cody, but also about reclaiming one's voice, advocating for the family, and holding on to the truth as a guide. The battle may be over, but the repair work and an opportunity toward genuine healing has only begun.